going on, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to do part 2, working on this velvet buck from Tennessee. I mounted him up the other day, and on the other video you can see where he had a lot of damage. He's got cuts all in him, a lot of damage in his ear from ticks and infections. It was really bad. He's stitched up all around his mouth. Over here on this side, you see the stitches right here and up under his neck there on his chin. This here right here was bad too, and even the backs. You can see all the infection where those ticks just eat him up. So what I'm going to do today, we're going to start on the epoxy work and get some of this epoxy going. I'm just going to kind of film what I'm doing and show y'all how I do the repairs that I'm going to do. I'm going to have to kind of work my way through this, figure out what we're going to do as we're going, because this is the worst that I've ever had to repair before. So we may have to come up with a few little things here or there that normally you wouldn't have to do, but I think we can get them looking pretty good. So appreciate y'all coming along and watching. Let's get started. We're going to be using epoxy sculpt for a lot of this. You mix this stuff half and half. It dries hard as a rock. It's paintable. Stuff will fix just about anything. It's also what I use to repair antlers. Just make sure when you're getting it out of the container that you use your little modeling tool or something. You can use your fingers. You just want to make sure that you don't mix one with the other, or you'll end up with hard spots in it. And that is not what you want. You'll end up ruining a little bit of your epoxy. Okay, where this tear duct is damaged, you can see there's a piece of skin sticking out right here. I'm going to trim that just a little bit. Way the rest of that will lay flat once we get our epoxy on there. It's pretty smooth. Using epoxy sculpt too, keep it a little bit wet, keep a little bit of water on it. Number one, it'll keep it from being so sticky. It won't stick to everything like your hands and your modeling tool, but it will also make it very, very smooth. You'll be able to smooth it out a lot easier. What we're going to have to do right here is kind of recreate the shape of that tear duct, because part of the front of it is missing. So it's not just a hole, but there's actually missing skin. So we're going to have to do a little bit of sculpture rather than just patchwork. Just a little bit more of that. Really, the tear duct should be right here. I'll cut that in just a little bit. Out like that. And the rest of this we're just going to smooth over to help form that repair. just like that. Go ahead and do around the edge of the eye here. Use water to smooth that out. I'll also take a brush, a paintbrush, put it in water, and just brush those edges real lightly. That'll smooth all that out real well. Go ahead and do the nostrils. That looking about how I want it. I'm going to do the same thing with the brush. I'll take it and spin it just a little bit in there. Round that off a little bit. Smooth out those edges. Once the inside of this ear is just destroyed. So we're gonna get some epoxy, build that up where all of that is level. Also around these ends, where all this is torn, I'm gonna level all that up too. Don't really want to cover up any of the existing hair. Just want to fill in all these holes and get everything on here to where it's all level and smooth like it's supposed to be. Once this epoxy dries, we'll go back and I'll show y'all what we're going to do to fix that. Some water to smooth that out. I know this looks really sloppy right now, and y'all are probably thinking, what in the world is he doing? But y'all will see. And trust me, this is going to look really sloppy for just a minute. But I've got an idea. After all this epoxy dries, I think y'all are going to like how this turns out. All right, don't have to be too awful detailed or anything. Just needs to be smooth. You have one level surface to work with here. That right there will work just fine. All right, and y'all can see too, the hair up around the top of where the skin meets the bases of the antlers, a lot of it got cut off. So we're going to go back in and fill in that gap. Like that. Really about the same issues over here. Although this tear duct was not cut near as bad. Just fill this in. You want to make sure that's packed real good in there. As much of this as you need. That way gaps don't open up. If this cape dries out just a little bit more and shrinks just a little bit more. Main thing too, talking about that, make sure that all of this is very dry before you start. Because a deer will continue to dry over the years anyway, and it will shrink up some even, you know, years after it's mounted. But you never want to do your epoxy work while the deer has any kind of dampness in it at all. If it has any moisture left in it at all, if you epoxy it, it's going to pull back away from that epoxy and you're going to have to redo it. So make sure before you do this that the deer is completely dry to avoid having to mess up some of the work that you're doing. ahead and get the nose, nostril on this side. I don't know if y'all can notice on camera, but I cut out a lot of the inside of my nostrils on my deer because I like to rebuild the shape of the inside of that nostril with epoxy. Deer have a very unique shape on the inside of their nostril, and it's hard to duplicate with just the foam. It's easier almost just to cut it away and then rebuild it. At least it is to me. Just a little bit of that in that little hole. We're going to do the same thing to this ear that we did on that other side. All these little, you can see it's kind of hard to tell probably on camera, but there's all these little bitty holes and imperfections just where it's rough. We've got those ear liners in there. And we did use that dryer sheet to kind of bond all this together so that we could get an ear liner in it. So now we're going to want to smooth it out. Make sure it's got a smooth surface to work with while we do our repair. Go ahead while we're at it and do the nose pad. I know y'all Mod Podge guys right now are cringing. Y'all hate to see this, but I have done it both ways, and this way gets me better results. Maybe just because I'm not any good at doing the Mod Podge. But honestly, I really like how this turns out. Trick is to keep it thin enough to show texture. And that's it. You don't want to build this nose up and make it protrude, look funny. All you're doing is just adding just enough of a layer of epoxy to where it'll show texture. Keep those edges down real smooth, thin. Just like that. We'll let that dry just enough where we can put the texture in it, and then we're going to build the bottom lip. And while we're waiting on the nose pad to dry, I'm going to put a little bit of epoxy on the back side of these ears right here, just to fill in some of those gaps. All right, that'll be smooth enough. Okay, the nose is about dry enough for the texture. I'm gonna take my texture tool, just a little bit of water on it there, put it in place, and smash, just like that. Come back and finish out the edges. That's that. Alrighty. Last but not least, I'm going to rebuild the bottom lip. Like that. Take the edge of my tucking tool. Give it a little bit of texture. Like that. We're gonna let that sit for a day, let that epoxy cure, then we're gonna come back and we're gonna paint it next. Okay, our epoxy is dry. So now what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go in with my airbrush, we're gonna go ahead and paint this thing. We'll get it painted up just like it was completely finished, and then we're gonna go back over that paint and work in a little bit of artificial hair in some of these spots to patch up and blend some of that damaged area into the rest of the cape. Let me get my chesty on, let me get my airbrush turned on, and we're gonna get started. I'll start out with some flesh color paint here on the nose. Like that. We're going to put some white in the ears. that. I'm gonna hit it just a little bit, the front edge of that eye too. Right there. Alrighty. Going to use a little bit of sand color around the eyes first. Like that. I'm also going to use just a little bit of that sand right along the outer edge of this ear, where sometimes it'll have that a little bit of an orange brown color, you know, right around the inside edge right there. Just like that. You can kind of see I didn't use a whole lot, just enough to get a little bit of a base color in there. All right, now we're going to finger paint this texture on the nose pad, just right across the top of those nodules. See how that's doing? Just paint the top, little top piece of them. About 100 different ways to do a nose. This is just the way that I like to do it. All right, see how that looks. Now we're going to use the dark brown, same color that we used on the nose pad. It's a dark brown mixed with black. Just start right in the middle of the eyeball. Work my way out and then fade it away from the deer. Just like that. Gets a real good blend. It doesn't make it too dark. You don't want your eyes to be black. Just like that. You see how well it blends in really good with that sand color, which makes for a deery look. All right, now I like to get just the inside of the nostrils there to cover up any leather color from the drying. And then we're going to hit this nose pad. The top half, you're going to want it pretty solid. And as you come down, you're going to get further and further away from it and just fade it out to where you can still see some of that pink on that bottom half. Roll this back so y'all can see what it looks like. See how that color is fading into the bottom there? We give it just enough to where you think it looks nice. About like that. I think I'm going to leave it right there. Just a little bit on that bottom lip. Just like that. All right, now along the bases of these antlers, where all that skin was cut off, I'm going to take this dark color and I'm just going to add a little bit around the edge of that antler, just to act kind of as a shadow, so that when we go over the top of it with our patchwork, It helps hide some of that epoxy. Okay, so now we're going to go back with the flesh tone to the inside of the nostrils and the inside of the ears. I like to get down in the ear really good with that flesh tone, and then just back it out, fade it out, just like I did around the front of the tear ducts. You want it to have just a little bit of a pink. Some folks like it a little bit more than others. I like mine to be a little bit on the lighter side personally. Not be quite as solid pink. Just like that. Then the inside of the nostrils. One. Two. Piece of cake. Okay, so recently I decided to try and come up with something different to try and mimic hair, especially very, very short hair around the face and the ears. In the past, I've used several different things, tried several different methods, and it'll cover it up, but I just haven't been real happy with it. So I don't know if y'all have ever seen those shavers that you use to shave fuzz balls off of sweaters with. My wife's got one of them, and I told her that I was going to get some of her sweaters and start shaving them into pieces and get me some stuff to do this. Well, the other day, she was in Hobby Lobby and found a pack of stuff. It's called Wool Roving. That's R-O-V-I-N-G. Comes in a little pack like this. Basically, it looks like fiberglass insulation, but it's made out of wool. It's real fine, fuzzy, curly, just shreds of wool is all it is. And I don't know if y'all have ever seen needle felted animals where people make little, they look like stuffed animals, but it's called needle felting. You take that and press it down in there and it looks like real fur. Some of those animals they make actually look like real animals. And she sent me a picture of it and said, you know, if you can make fake animals that look real, surely you could take a real animal and repair it with this stuff. And I was like, man, that is a fantastic idea. So she grabbed me a pack of it. This one right here is kind of an off-white. It's got a little bit of gray in it. And it works really well around the ears and some of the face and stuff. But I looked it up on Amazon this morning and found several different colors of this stuff that would go probably perfect with deer heads and along with other, several other kind of animals. This to me looks exactly like squirrel fur. It would be great repair for squirrels, but I'm going to put some links, some Amazon links in the description below of some of those colors on Amazon that I'm going to try next time I order them. I'm going to try them. I think they're going to be perfect. I used this on a deer right when she brought it home for a little bit of repair work on the face, and it did great. So I'm going to try it on this disaster of these ears and stuff and see if we can kind of get the same results. Okay, now for this, I'm going to use fiber tack, same thing you use to attach the artificial velvet. This stuff right here is really sticky, and it's also got a little bit of give to it. It does great for repair work, especially with small fibers, because it's so durable. I mean, it holds that velvet on there. Even those little tiny velvet fibers are just stuck so solid. So it works great for stuff like this right here. Now that that epoxy is dry, you can see it's left us some flat places where we can actually work, get some of this stuff to stick. Spots down in the ear there, y'all probably can't hardly even see. I'm also going to add some around the base of these antlers to try and fill in some of this gap. Go. Let that dry. I'm gonna do the same with this here. All right, now we're gonna do the base of this antler. I'm gonna use a little bit right here in the corner of this eye where it was cut. Get it patched up a little bit. I'm gonna put some along this lip line where all these stitches are at. See if we can blend a little bit of that in with the rest of this cape so you don't see all those stitch lines. I'm not gonna use much, just enough to hide the imperfections there. tiny, tiny, tiny little strands of this. I'm just going to roll it a little bit, make it as thin as I can. If I can get his whiskers out of the way here. I'm just going to lay that on there, just like that. Man, that glue's sticky. Once it sits for just a second, it's not near as bad to work with, but you almost can't even get it pressed down into the glue until it tacks up just a minute because it's so sticky, it's trying to stick to your hands. See how little I'm using. I mean, it's just a few threads, just big enough to fit just right over that, kind of glue down almost like a patch on drywall. You can see, I mean, it's not 100% perfect, but it does look better than the stitch. And as that dries, I can even flatten it out, and it just blurs that line, and then you can paint over it. You see where it just kind of blurs that in right there, covers up the stitches. Okay, now once the glue gets tacked up enough, I take this and just press it into place. Spots like this, the hair is so short, you don't need a whole lot of texture, a whole lot of fuzz to it. Just like to press it down into those spots so that it evens out with the rest of the cape. And get rid of those lines and damaged spots. Like that. Now we're just going to do the same thing to the rest of this bottom jaw where these stitch lines were at. All right, I'm going to add just a little bit to the top part of this tear duct right here where that hair is missing. We had to do that repair. Trick is, add a little bit more than what you need, let it dry, come back, trim it to shape, then paint it. All right, now on the back side of these ears, we're going to use flocking fibers and going to use that Static King to make them stick on here where it looks, you know, a little bit more like hair. It's going to lay down like this. I've already done this ear right here. All we're going to do is put glue on here. You want to make sure that the deer is turned flat this way. You want the hairs to come out and stick like that. If you do it where it's above it, it's all going to go down there and kind of pile up in a pile. That's not what you want. Get some light where you can see it here. Just put that up there and just shake it. See that? So those little hairs are just sticking straight out. Get on there nice and thick. See the texture of it. See where it's just sticking up like fuzz? You just kind of lay that down a little bit. We're going to let that dry. All right, we're going to do a little bit of painting. I do believe our stuff's dry enough now to where we can do that. I'm just going to use a little bit on my fingertips here. Just kind of highlight a little bit of that just to get rid of some of those shadows. Let's really fix the edge of that tear duct. Just a little bit right there. Color that just a little bit darker. There we go. You can see how well that blends in right there. Instead of just looking like a shiny bit of epoxy, it's got a little bit of a texture now. It looks more like hair. Take just a little bit. This is golden brown. Use just a little bit of this. And just barely touch it to that in a few places. Kind of scrub that in. That'll blend on in with the rest of his color of his hair there. Just like that. Do a little bit of sand. Right there along the side of his snout. That. on the side of his eye. That. The same color we can probably use along the base of this antler. See how that turns out here. Kind of like that. Yeah. Do the other side the same way. It's a little bigger over here. I may have to add a little bit of gold color to it. Maybe add some shadows too. Yeah, let's darken that up just a little bit. A little bit of this dark brown in here with it. Tell you, you don't realize how complicated the colors of a deer's cape is until you start trying to duplicate it with paint. There's so many colors going on. They're so brittle colored. They're not, you know, it's just not just brown. It's just a bunch of different colors. All right, now we're going to go back with the golden brown. We're going to add just a little bit of that color on here. See if we can't match this cape. Right there's not half bad. I'm going to leave that alone. Okay, now go get my airbrush back out. I'll get a little bit of the dark brown. And get that lip line. Those stitches right along there. Like that. I can hit the edge of that ear with that too while we're at it. Just on the very, very tip. Like that. And just a tear right here on that stitch. Run that in a little bit there. Hit that lip line. On the back side right here, we don't want that too dark. That needs to be a light color there. We'll hit just the outer edge of this ear. Just like that. A little bit of sand color right around the edge of his mouth. Just a little bit right on the inside edge of this ear. Like that, looks good. Same on that side. Looks Looks pretty good. All right, now the ears are not completely dry yet back here where I flocked them, but I'm gonna go ahead and airbrush them, get them painted up. And just a little bit of dark brown paint on the backside there. Just blend that in. Just like that. That glue, you can see the glue, but as it dries, it will be clear, so it won't show up as white. Spray them with a little triple thick. Yeah, there we go. All right, y'all, there we go. Is that ear? The other ear. Just like I said, guys, we ain't going for perfection on this one. This one's just a save the cape kind of job. So you may not ever have to do this. This is kind of a one in a million kind of thing. Very rare. And even the repairs are going to be very rare. But if you do have a cape that's destroyed or not destroyed, even if you want to cut some holes in it on purpose, wouldn't be a bad idea to do some practice, just trying some of these techniques and trying to do some of this stuff in case you ever do have to do it. Plus, there's so many different ways to fix capes that you may even want to try different things just to see which one works best for you. Everybody kind of does their own thing, does a little bit different kind of repairs, and you may find something that works better than this. If you do, hey, let me know. Let me know in the comments, because I'm always up for suggestions. But guys, we're going to call this a finished video and call it a finished deer. Only thing we got left, this little spot right here, was where he shot it with the arrow. He killed this sucker with a recurve, and I've got the rest of the arrow right here. He's going to have that in the deer. So I'm going to talk to him and decide how he wants to do that cut right there. See if he wants it to look like it's been shot, wants me to repair it, or what he wants me to do. But we're going to stick that arrow in there before he takes it home. But yeah, y'all, I think that turned out pretty good considering. I kind of like it. I really appreciate y'all watching, guys. Y'all hit that subscribe button if you hadn't already. We will see y'all in the next video.